Hello and welcome to Makeshift Minis. Since it's episode 13, I thought I'd amuse myself by making a Lich. If any of the steps look familiar, it's because I based a lot of it on the skeleton I made earlier. I start as I usually do by straightening out paper clips with my pliers. Once I have enough wire, I begin shaping it to make the armature. After bending two of the wires into the shape of a staple and a hook, I hot glue them together. To make the ribs, I start by cutting up a strip of plastic into about half-inch squares. I don't need too many pieces, maybe about half a dozen. Once I feel like I have enough bits of plastic, I trim off the corners to make them rounder. Using my awl, I poke holes in the plastic for the armature wire. I'm not as careful as I should have been with a sharp object, but fortunately nothing bad happened. After threading the plastic on the wire, I glue it in place. I cover the edge of the piece of plastic in hot glue, cooling it off and then stacking another piece of plastic on top. Once the rib cage is finished, I use hot glue to attach the wire for the arms before cooling it off in water. Now that I assembled the torso, I start filling out the abdomen and some of the areas between the ribs with hot glue. If I left too many gaps, it would look like a skeleton rather than a desiccated husk. With the body finished, I start coating the legs in hot glue. I don't need to be particularly careful how the legs look, only that they're there because I'm going to be covering them up later anyways. I temporarily put the Lich in a piece of cork so I have a convenient handle while trimming the wires for the arms. Just like with the legs, I cover the arms in hot glue, not bothering to make it look pretty because of things I have planned later. With the main body finished, I get to work on the head. For the base of the head, I put a bit of hot glue at the end of the wire and try and keep it fairly round while I cool it off. Once the base of the head is large enough, I start shaping the jaw by adding lines of hot glue to each side. I use the wire as a support for the jaw as the glue cools. Using the tip of my glue gun, I add details like adding eye sockets or smoothing out rougher areas. You can always add more details to a face, though it isn't easy using a tool that's as big as what you're working on. After using an awl to bore a hole in the base of the head, I slide it onto the neck before gluing it down. After posing the Lich, I glue it down to a bottle cap to use as a base. Once it's secured in place, I begin working on accessories and details. The first accessory I make is a spell book. I use a small strip of craft foam as a spine to glue the covers together. Since a Lich is a wizard who made himself undead, I wanted to give him a staff. A normal staff would have been boring, so I glue the book to the toothpick that I use as the shaft. I then decorate the end of the staff with hot glue, making a hand holding the book in place. Once I finish the staff, I attach it to the end of the Lich's arm. While I glue down the staff, I take time to sculpt a hand. The next addition I make is a necklace. I make a loop by twisting a wire around a toothpick. After I cut the wire to length, I use a bit of hot glue to fill in the loop to make a jewel. The next piece I make is a crown using the same wire used for the necklace. I make 8 consecutive loops before I trim it. One by one, I fill in the loops with hot glue and then cool it off in water. After I attach the necklace and crown, I start adding pages to the Lich's spellbook. I put tissue paper in the book before painting on diluted PVA glue to secure it in place. After the glue dries, I trim the pages closer to the book cover. Using more PVA glue, I soak the pieces of tissue paper to wrap around the arms to make sleeves. It may be thin, but anyone who's worked with paper mache knows how durable it can get. Using more tissue paper, I make a skirt for the Lich. The clothing is why I really didn't bother with details for the limbs, because I knew it would get covered up anyway. After priming the mini, I give each area a different base coat. For the skin, I start by mixing colors to get a flesh tone. I got the color by mixing ivory, yellow, and pink. The clothing has a much simpler base coat. I just use navy blue to cover the skirt and mantle. The staff gets a base coat of brown, but not for the reason you'd think. I want to paint it to look like bone rather than wood, and to do that I need a base coat of brown. The pages of the spellbook, crown, and necklace all get a base coat of yellow. Even though I paint them different colors on subsequent layers, they both need the same base color. Now that I've finished with all the base coats, I start adding variation by dry brushing lighter colors on the clothes. I start dry brushing a mix of sky blue and navy blue before dry brushing sky blue to give it aged and weathered effect. To give the skin a proper deathly pallor, I dry brush a mix of pink, yellow, white, and ivory. I found the best way for me to get a bone color is to base coat in brown and then dry brush sepia. I then dry brush ivory to get a more natural tone. While I have ivory on the brush, I dry brush the skin to make it even paler. Using a small brush, I paint the crown and necklace gold. I'm glad I used a yellow base coat because I've always found metallic paints are very thin. After adding final details like painting the book cover, shoes, and jewel red, I paint the base black. I find this last step is always very satisfying. With the mini finished, I'd say it's on to the glamour shots, but it's undead. The Lich is certainly one of the more complicated minis I've made on this channel, but I think it turned out pretty well. My one major issue that I have is the eyes, but I've never been very good at painting fine details. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Take care, be well, and until next time.